So today I want to tell you the tragic story of heavyweight boxing champion Magomed Abdusalamov. So just to give some clarity, this is Abdusalamov here, and back in 2013 he suffered life-changing brain injuries and was left paralyzed after a fight against Mike Perez in Madison Square Garden. Now recently he returned to Dagestan and was met by Islam Makhachev and other people from his community in Dagestan.
В прошлом году июле увиделись, и после боя ты сказал, что мы финка у тебя покушаем. Все. Обязательно, да, Зума?
Now, this is not the first time they've met. Islam and Khabib actually met Abdusalamov backstage after Islam's win over Dustin Poirier at UFC 302.
Салам алейкум. Как ты?
Чемпиона.
Я ж там первый раз вижу. Как ты, брат? Красавчик. А я что, говорит, разобрал, говорит. Что, понравилось? Как ты боксировать умел бы, я его сразу положил бы. Красавчик. Рад тебя видеть. Как у тебя? Нормально понравился тебе бой? Слан. Рад тебя видеть, Михаил. Когда домой, когда дома увидимся? Финкал покушаем, когда?
Саламу алейкум ва рахматуллахи ва баракатуху. Пятый поселок. Как ты?
So just to give some clarity on this story, this is the tragic story of Magomed Abdusalamov. Now, Abdusalamov, a Russian heavyweight boxer, suffered permanent brain damage resulting from his 2013 fight with Mike Perez. Now, we're going to take a look at the actual fight in a second just to give some context about what happened to him during that fight. Just to give some clarity, at the time, Abdusalamov was a legitimate world champion. He had a record of 18-0, and if you look at his actual record, all of his fights were won by TKO and knockout. So he was a legitimate heavyweight world champion from Dagestan. But unfortunately, on the night of November 2nd, 2013, he suffered life-changing injuries which left him brain damaged and paralyzed. As a result of this, Abdusalamov's family actually sued the New York State Athletic Commission and the doctors and received a payout for $22 million. Now, I'm just going to read an article just to give some insight into what actually happened. And it says, Magomed Abdusalamov family reaches settlement for medical malpractice. The story says the family of former heavyweight boxer Magomed Abdusalamov has officially released a settlement with a trio of ringside doctors who examined the fighter following his 2013 bout with Mike Perez. Abdusalamov would drop a 10-round decision in the outing where he took serious punishment and would ultimately be discovered to have a serious brain bleed. No thanks to the physicians on hand. Now, after the fight against Mike Perez, doctors gave Abdusalamov a post-fight examination in the locker room where they stitched a cut over his eye and then cleared him to leave the arena, only telling him to visit a doctor back home within a week to have his stitches removed and his face x-rayed for facial fractures. Abdusalamov was reported to have complained of his head hurting at that time, and while those doctors had an ambulance they could use in case of an emergency, the doctors obviously didn't deem it necessary, believing that Abdusalamov didn't need to go to the hospital that night. They were dangerously wrong. After the doctors left Abdusalamov's locker room, a fight inspector noticed blood in Abdusalamov's urine sample and urged him to immediately go to the hospital. And then he did go to the hospital. They determined he had a brain bleed, which required emergency surgery. And after that surgery, it left him with permanent brain damage and disabled forever. So just to give some context as to how much damage he actually took, we're going to look at round 1 and then round 10 of this fight.
Who sees in Provodnikov, Ruslan Provodnikov, a kindred spirit. He wants to be like a heavyweight Provodnikov.
It's interesting that Perez actually outweighs Abdusalamov coming into the ring, or at least he outweighed him at the weigh-in yesterday, because Perez,
so you can see, as a heavyweight,
weighed 201. However,
as a heavyweight, you can clearly see that Abdusalamov is very agile and light on his feet for a heavyweight. Technical, very powerful. Mike Perez is, of course, standing in the pocket. Perez looks very powerful as well. Super technical and super powerful shots from Mike Perez, but you can also see Abdusalamov is composed, he's patient, he's experienced. He's not throwing anything too crazy, he's taking his time. Now, this was a massive fight as well. This was actually on the undercard of Gennady Golovkin versus Curtis Stevens. So this was a massive event in Madison Square Garden in New York. Thousands of people attended, and millions of people around the world actually watched this fight.
Pressure fighters, they start slow. Heavyweight pressure fighters, especially Joe Frazier and you know, guys like that would oftentimes take a few rounds to get going.
But Perez hasn't started slow, and he wobbled Abdusalamov with that right hand and has landed some thunderous body shots, Roy.
Yeah, the problem Perez has.
Yeah, you can see Mike Perez is clearly the more powerful striker. You can clearly see a size difference as well. Abdusalamov seems to be taller, but Perez seems to be the thicker fighter, the bigger fighter.
To affect Mike Perez's temperament in the ring, so far has been answered. It's yes.
Oh, that was a nasty shot from Perez.
I don't think that's a product of Abel Sanchez. I think that's just the way this kid came up fighting. He said he's had over 300 fights.
Abdusalamov clearly a technical fighter.
Aggressively early in the fight.
Well, he had no other choice.
Clearly very skilled. And it is a tragedy that his career was basically ended on this night.
Good left hand and a right hook landed for Abdusalamov. Perez has landed the sharper shots, but Abdusalamov has also gotten in some damage here in round number 1.
And Perez has found that maybe because Abdusalamov has forced him into that kind of fight, he can have real success in this kind of fight.
Yeah, he is.
Low blow for Perez.
The only thing you got to be concerned about here is the long left hand of Abdusalamov, because it seems as though Perez has the better right hook, which was landed to the body right there, and that's very smart to go to the body.
Yeah, Mike Perez landed 22 strikes in this fight. Abdusalamov 12. 23 strikes to 12 in the first round in favor of Mike Perez.
He's getting off quicker.
I see an amateur experience advantage here. Perez.
Nice body shot combination from Abdusalamov. He's staying in the pocket, Abdusalamov. He seems to be getting overpowered a little bit. Yeah, that was round 1. You can clearly see he was outboxed. He looks a little bit tired. Only 1 round. He looks kind of frustrated. It seems that something may have been off that night, because he looks frustrated. He's already looking at his jaw. His jaw was actually broken in this fight, and it looks like his jaw was broken in the first round. And that's what he's saying to his brother and his coaches here, that his jaw was broken in the very first round. So yeah, he seemed to take quite a bit of damage in that first round, looking at his face. You know, obviously this is heavyweight boxing, but Perez was a powerful puncher. You know, he broke Abdusalamov's jaw in the first round there, and he left him looking pretty frustrated. So let's move to round 10 now. I don't want to watch the entire fight because I don't really want to watch all of it. So going into round 10, it was 86-84 in favor of Mike Perez, and Abdusalamov won 2 rounds, and Perez won, I think it was 8 rounds up to this point. But you can see Abdusalamov was wearing quite a bit of damage, particularly over his orbitals, and his face was way more blown up, and of course his left jaw got broken as he showed in the first round, and you can clearly see that now. By the 10th round, he must have taken hundreds of shots to that broken jaw, making it even worse, which must have been super painful, and also no doubt impaired his boxing ability as well. And his face, man, wow, his face does not look good. Very, very damaged. His jaw clearly visibly broken. How the referee let this fight continue, fuck knows how they let this go on. The shots and damage he was taking. You can clearly see the guy's face is fucked. Why did they let him continue to fight? Why did they not stop this fight? This is the problem with boxing. They allow boxers to take so much damage. Even when they're clearly visibly injured and damaged, they allow them to keep fighting, which was very costly on this night for Abdusalamov. And it's a shame, man. His entire career was ruined. 18-0 up to this point. 18 knockouts. Oh my God, wow. That was a nasty shot. Perez clearly has the power advantage in this fight. And he inflicted a lot of damage here. Wow. This is tough to watch, man. Because he clearly was not on form this night. Something must have been off. And it's hurtful to see that the referee let the fight go on for this long. Should have stopped it. 306 punches for Mike Perez, 246 for Abdusalamov. So Abdusalamov absorbed 306 punches to the face, to the head, to the body. The majority of them to the head, the face, and the jaw. Which is why he was left with a blood clot in his brain. Oh my fucking God, man. Holy shit, this is crazy. Abdusalamov still fighting to the final bell. Absolutely insane. He had a blood clot in his brain and was still fighting to the final bell. And you can clearly see he was disappointed. He was shaking his head. He wasn't happy. Something must have been off that night. You know, it's a shame what happened to this man's career. As I say, this is a very tragic story because Abdusalamov was a legitimate world champion. Before the loss to Mike Perez, his record was 18-0. Every single one of his fights was by TKO and knockout. 2 or 3 of his fights were in Russia. The rest of his fights were in the United States. He fought in Florida. He fought in Las Vegas. He fought in all different cities around the United States, beating his opponent by knockout and TKO. He was a WBC world champion, a legitimate world champion. And this completely ruined his career. A lack of due care by the doctors in the locker room basically cost him his career, cost him millions of dollars. And the $22 million payout that he received, in my opinion, was definitely not enough. So yeah, that is the tragic story of Magomed Abdusalamov. And you know, it's great to see that Islam Makhachev paid his respect and met Abdusalamov in the airport in Dagestan, because he deserves that respect, and I'm sure that he really appreciated it. He felt the love and the warmth welcoming him back home after 12 years. He's probably been through a lot of pain and suffering. He's been through hell over the last 12 years. He had his career snatched away from him due to a lack of due care from the medical doctors that night in Madison Square Garden. There's not enough money that can compensate for what happened to this man on that tragic night in 2013. But anyway, I'm going to end this video on a positive note and leave you with this video of Islam Makhachev paying respect to Abdusalamov in the airport after returning home after 12 years.
И после боя ты сказал, что мы финкаутами потушим все.
Обязательно, даже мама.
Такие болели за тебя,